Hey everybody, it's Ron, and I want to tell you a story about business and how that story changed everything. So let me tell you a story about a new restaurant I went to here in St. Louis the other day. I walked in, and the first thing I saw was a wall, not a menu board, an actual wall, covered edge to edge, ceiling to floor, with packages of dry ramen noodles. Dozens of brands and flavors I'd never heard of. After some time, I picked one, then moved down a line the way you would at a build-your-own-salad place. Except everything on offer were things like tofu, sliced meats, sprouts, soft-boiled eggs, a dozen little bowls of things that 20 minutes from now would be sitting in my ramen. I loaded up a tray, paid at the register, and they handed me something that felt almost ceremonial for instant noodles. A heavy, nicely printed cardboard bowl with an Asian-inspired design running around the outside. Then they pointed me towards a dispenser built for exactly one purpose. Hot water for ramen, nothing else. I filled my own bowl, dropped in my noodles and my toppings when it was the right time, and I waited, watching steam rise while the noodles softened right in front of me. The same slow couple of minutes I'd wait to like steep tea. Standing there, watching my own dinner assemble itself with nothing but hot water and a few minutes of patience, it hit me. I'd just paid a genuinely premium price at a stylish little shop for a curated version of the single cheapest, most utilitarian meal a broke person could make for themselves. No stove, no skill, just water, heat, and time. And I couldn't stop thinking about where all of this actually started, because I already knew it wasn't in a restaurant, and it definitely wasn't stylish. See, it started in a shed, a small, ramshackle wooden shed built behind a rented house in Osaka, Japan, by a 48-year-old man who had just lost nearly everything he owned. He spent a couple months out there alone, sleeping only a few hours a night, chasing an idea that had started years earlier when he watched people lining up in the cold at a black market noodle stall, desperate for something hot to eat. So what does it actually take to turn the cheapest possible meal into something people will wait in line in the cold just to get? What happens when the exact same idea ends up serving two completely different kinds of hunger 6 decades apart? And how did one man, working alone in that shed, land on the answer on August 25th, 1958? From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast where we explain the stories that changed business forever. Every date on the calendar has a story where business reshaped the world. Today, August 25th, that story takes us to 1958. From food lines, to college dorms, to gourmet. Momofuku Ando wasn't a chef, and he wasn't a food scientist. He was a serial entrepreneur, Taiwanese-born, who'd already built and lost more than one fortune across a couple of decades. Textiles, slide projectors, salt production. In 1957, serving as chairman of a credit union a friend had asked him to help lead, the whole institution collapsed, and under Japanese law, made him personally liable for its debts. He lost nearly everything he owned, except a small rented house in Ikeda, Osaka, Japan. He was 48 years old, starting over for what genuinely felt like the last time. Here's the part most people get wrong about what happens next. Ramen itself wasn't new. Bowls of noodles and broth had already been a familiar, beloved dish in Japan for decades. Served fresh at restaurants and street stalls, made from scratch every single time. What didn't exist yet was a version anyone could keep on a shelf and prepare themselves in minutes. Ando wasn't chasing a new flavor. He was chasing access for a dish people already loved but couldn't always afford the time or the money to eat. That idea had been sitting with him for years already. Walking through post-war Osaka, he once passed a black market noodle stall and watched a long line of people waiting, cold, hungry, just for a single bowl of hot ramen. Around the same time, Japan's government was pushing bread made from surplus American wheat flour to solve a food shortage. And Ando couldn't understand the logic, arguing to a health ministry official that bread needed side dishes Japanese households simply didn't have, while noodles were already exactly what people wanted to eat. That image, the line, the cold, stayed with him for a decade before he finally had the freedom, or the desperation, to act on it. In the spring of 1958, Ando built a small shed behind his rented house, bought an old noodle-making machine and a single large wok, and started working almost entirely alone, with no formal training in food science to guide him. Month after month of failed experiments followed, drying noodles, steaming them, seasoning them, nothing preserving both the texture and the shelf life he actually needed. The breakthrough came from an unlikely place. One evening, watching his wife Masako fry tempura in their kitchen, Ando noticed the batter bubbling the instant it hit the hot oil, moisture escaping fast as the coating cooked. He realized the same principle could dry noodles quickly enough to preserve them without ruining them, and that the tiny holes left behind by the escaping moisture were exactly what would let hot water soak back in later. He called it the flash fry method, and it solved two problems at once: how to store the noodles indefinitely and how to bring them back to life in minutes with nothing but boiling water. On August 25th, 1958, Chikin Ramen went on sale, but the cost was running about 6 times that of fresh noodles. This is where the actual business mechanism shows up plainly. Wholesalers took one look at that price and refused to stock it, certain nobody would pay a premium for dried noodles sitting next to fresh ones they already trusted. But Ando didn't wait for distributors to come around. He organized his own tasting events, going directly to consumers and letting the product make its own case. Within a year, his first factory was producing 10,000 packs a day. The product kept evolving right alongside the market it was reaching. In 1966, traveling through the United States to promote his noodles, Ando watched Americans break his dry noodle blocks apart, place hot water over them, and eat them straight out of paper cups with forks, since they had no bowls or kitchens handy wherever they happened to be. Rather than treat that as a problem, he built the solution directly into a new product. In 1971, Nissin, which was his company, launched Cup Noodles, a fully self-contained cup requiring nothing but hot water and no dish of your own. By 1989, Cup Noodles had outsold the original Chikin Ramen entirely. The scale that followed is hard to overstate. Today, more than 100 billion servings of instant noodles are consumed worldwide every single year. In December 2000, a poll asked Japanese citizens to name the country's greatest invention of the 20th century, and instant noodles won outright, ranked ahead of the Walkman, the bullet train, and the digital camera. When Ando died in 2007 at 96, His funeral was held in a baseball stadium. 34 clergy members officiating in front of roughly 6,500 mourners. 2 former prime ministers were among them. One of them, Yoshihiro Nakasone, delivered the eulogy himself, calling Ando the creator of a culinary culture post-war Japan could be proud of. I stood there in that St. Louis shop, waiting for my own bowl of noodles to finish steeping, having just paid a premium price for the exact same mechanism Ando invented out of pure desperation in a backyard shed. Hot water, a few minutes of patience, nothing else required. 60-some years apart, the same idea is still solving 2 completely different kinds of hunger at once. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the podcast that finds the turning points behind the headlines. To hear more stories like this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the stories, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. And if you want to actually understand business better without the fluff, the buzzwords, or the MBA language, start by visiting businessdailypodcast.com.